All right, you are welcome again. Today we are talking about relativity. Okay, now let's take a look at this question. A cube has a proper volume of 1000 cm cube. Find the volume as determined by an observer O prime who moves at a velocity of 0.8 c relative to the cube in the direction parallel to one edge. Okay, now solution. We say the observer measures an edge of the cube parallel to the direction of motion to have the contracted length. So that is to say, this cube is in 3 dimensions, and then one of the edge is the edge that has a contraction. So all the edge are the same. Okay, so here now we have in 3 dimensions the edge in x-axis, the edge in y-axis, the edge in z-axis. All right, good. Now here we have 2 observers, O and O prime. The edge or the sides measured by the O prime is going to have prime. Okay, maybe in x direction we have L prime subscript x. That is talking about the contracted length. Okay, good. Now we're going to say that contracted length, which is L prime in x direction, we say one side is affected, right? So we take the side that is affected as x. So we're going to have L prime subscript x, that is contracted length in x direction, is equal to Lx, the unaffected. The Lx, that is measured by observer at rest. Okay, good. Multiply by square root of 1 minus v squared all over c squared. Okay, so we say that the Lx, that is the length in x direction measured by the observer at rest, is 10 cm. So when you say 10 cm multiplied by 10 cm multiplied by 10 cm, it's going to give you 1000. That is going to give you the volume, right? Good. Now v, that is the velocity, is going to give us 0.8 c, and then we'll talk about the contracted length in the side of x, that is L prime subscript x. That is what we are asked to find. Then the speed of light is 300 million meter per second, right? We can simply say 3 times 10 raised to power 8. Okay, good. Now we say the contracted length on x-axis, which is L prime x, is equal to, now in place of Lx we replace with 10 times square root of 1 minus v, we have 0.8 c in bracket squared all over c squared, right? Good. Now L prime subscript x, that is contracted length, is going to give us 10 multiplied by, this 0.8 c in bracket squared. It can be written as 0.8 in bracket squared times c squared, right? Good. Now all over c squared. So the c squared in numerator will cancel c squared in denominator. So we're going to be left with 10 multiplied by square root of 1 minus, when you say 0.8 squared, it's going to give us 0.64, right? Good. And then when you say 1 minus 0.64, it's going to give you 0.36. Then this 0.36, let's take the square root of it. And when you take the square root of it, it's going to give you 0.6. Then 0.6 multiplied by 10 is equal to what? 6. So the contracted length in one of the edge is 6 cm. Now, this is in 3 dimensions. One edge is affected. The rest of the 2 edges are not affected. So we say that the length in y-axis measured by the observer in motion is the same as the length measured by observer at rest, which is L prime subscript y is equal to L subscript y, which is the same as 10 cm, is unaffected. And then the edge in z direction, that is the length in z direction measured by the observer in motion, that is L prime subscript z, is the same as the length in z direction measured by observer at rest, which is the same as 10 cm. So now, the length measured by the observer in motion in x direction, we have calculated and we see that it is 6 cm. So in the question, we are asked to find the volume measured by the observer in motion, and then we see that only one side is affected, that is in x direction. So the new volume here is going to give us v measured by the observer in motion. We call it v prime. Okay, it's going to give us the length measured by the observer in motion in x direction multiplied by the length measured by observer in motion in y direction multiplied by the length measured by the observer in motion in z direction. So we simply call it L prime subscript x times L prime subscript y times L prime subscript z. Okay, so we've seen that here we have the length measured by the observer in motion in x direction is given us 6 times, in y direction is 10, in z direction is 10. So here we have 6 times 10 times 10. So 6 times 10 is 60. 60 times 10 is 600. So here the volume measured by the observer in motion, v prime, is equal to 600 cm cube. All right? Yes. So here we have to calculate the volume measured by the observer in motion, having the velocity of 0.8 c, and then the proper volume is measured to be 1000 cm cube. So the contracted volume is given as 600 cm cube. All right? Yes. Thank you very much for watching.